All right, hi everyone. Just a few general announcements. I'd like to ask you to silence or turn off all cell phones. And also, we're going to be taking questions through Twitter as well as Poll Everywhere. If you can't see the sign, we have wrote it on the boards. So Poll Everywhere, you can text IST Startup to 37607 or ask questions through Twitter with the hashtag IST Startup, as well as it might make it a little easier if you tweet at Kathleen, and her Twitter handle is at the bottom there, Kathleen_Warner. Also, we are also on Flickr as well as Instagram, if either of you utilize either of those social medias. Now for a brief introduction. Kathleen Warner, who will be a graduate in 2014, is a Schreyer's Honors student at Penn State. She is also the president of Innoblue, whose mission is to encourage development of more startups out of Penn State by leading workshops designed to help launch startups. Some of these workshops focus on design, marketing, programming, bootstrapping, and many more. Last year, Warner took a leave of absence from college and was in the third batch of 500 startups as the director of marketing for One School, a mobile education app for colleges. This past summer, Kathleen did design and marketing for the mobile app Tiny Post, helping them with the rebrand and redesign of the app. Warner plans to graduate from Penn State in 2014 with degrees in theater and advertising. Let's give it up for Kathleen.
Oh, it says mute, but it means on. So I'll leave that there. Okay, so now you guys can hear me? Okay, well, good. So I have my Twitter handle up there, so feel free to tweet me questions, but also feel free to interrupt me because I want to make sure that this is helpful for you guys. So if I'm talking about something and you're curious to hear more or just ask questions in general, feel free just to raise your hand and ask me questions. So how many of you have ever wanted to start your own company? Okay, a good amount of you. How many already have or are currently working on something? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, that's awesome, but I think more hands should be up. So I'm going to talk about why college is the best time to start your own company. And funny enough, last year I was not in college. You can come in. So it all started... Oh, this is not working. All right, we'll resort to the mouse. There we go. Okay, so it all started at the end of my freshman year. So as you heard Nikki say, I'm a theater and advertising major, which isn't a likely combo for anything relating to tech. And I wanted to create a talent management website that would connect artists with venues. And I had no idea how to do this. I just had an idea, and I wanted to make it happen. And I didn't know how to make a website. I didn't even know what went into making a website. I had no idea how you got pictures onto a page and how you formatted it. It was just this foreign world to me. But I found Innoblue, and so I started going to their workshops, and this was my introduction into everything. And I really liked it, and through Innoblue, I met a group of students working on something called One School. And I became really interested in what they were doing, and I was actually then more interested in what they were doing than what I was doing, and so I was helping them with marketing and getting all of my classes signed up. And then at the end of the semester, they were deciding that they were going to go out to California. And so originally, One School was a website. So did anybody have One School on their phone? Did anyone use it when it was a website? Did you? Oh, wow. That was like way back when. What? So One School is a mobile education app that is the was the one-stop shop for college students. So actually, in this slide, it lists the features that it had. So we transitioned from being a website in the spring to a mobile app in the summer. And so they decided they were going to go out to California and see what they could make happen. And so they invited me to go out with them, and I was like, well, okay, I've never been to California before, so sure. It sounded adventurous, and I really had no idea what I was getting myself into, and I just kind of went with it, but I'm so happy that I did. And so I really knew nothing about Silicon Valley before going out there. And I was meeting all these people that worked on services that I use, like Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, and I could not get over the fact that I was at YouTube watching YouTube videos. Like, that was mind-boggling for me. And so as we were surrounded by all of these people who were creating products that were used by people around the world, I felt like we really had a chance at this, especially relating to education. Everyone was really passionate about it. And we wanted to create something that would make for a better experience at college. So connecting students and helping you learn in the classroom. And so we lived in Berkeley. And so, like, talking about meeting people that were creating products everyone used, down in the bottom right-hand corner, that's Adam D'Angelo. He was one of the early people at Facebook. He created Quora. And so you were constantly meeting these people. And so this world was so foreign beforehand, but when you're out there, you're like, well, I mean, why couldn't it be us? We're meeting all these people. It doesn't seem so different. And so we worked really ridiculous hours. We would wake up really early in the mornings, drive out to San Francisco, stay there until late hours, drive back to Berkeley, do it all over again. And we should have been exhausted, but we were on fire. And this is kind of embarrassing, but every night before I would go to bed, I would get into bed and do like this little squeal. Hey, David. David was part of one school. I'm talking about how we would transition from Berkeley to San Francisco every day. And so I'm saying that I've never told you this, but every night before I'd go to bed, I'd do this little squeal. I'm not going to do it. But I had never had that excitement about anything in life. And sure, I was passionate about a lot of things, like theater and music in particular, but this was something new. And I didn't know what I was getting myself into, but I loved it. And so towards the end of summer, we raised $100,000, and it was at that point that I called my mom, and I had the conversation that I think she knew was coming from a few weeks earlier. And so I told her that I wasn't going to return to college in the fall. And so I spent 7 months out in the Bay Area working on one school, and I loved it. And I then went back to Penn State, and it was an easy decision to go out to California, but it was a really hard decision to go back to Penn State. And I did it because I felt like there were still things that I wanted to learn. And so when I was out in the Bay Area, it was a hands-on experience. I was learning things that I never would have learned in the classroom, but I also felt like there were still things that I wanted to learn in the classroom, and I wanted to have the time to learn more things because you're working on a full-time job, and so, yeah, you want to learn more about Photoshop, and you want to learn how to program, but you don't have the time. And so I realized on coming back to college, there are so many things that I want to do, and I actually started spending less time in class and more time learning what I wanted to do. Whereas, like, freshman year, I was that student that was really anal about getting all A's. And then I came back, and teachers were happy when I came to class. And so there was one day in particular, whenever I came back, and I was walking out of the hub, and I read TechCrunch every day. Does anyone read TechCrunch here? Do you guys know what it is? So, yeah, it's a tech site, and one school was at the top of it. And that kind of shocked me, and I had never been filled with so much excitement but nausea at the same time, because it was in that moment that I realized, okay, I'm now on the other side. I'm not in California. I'm not working on this anymore. Like, at that point, here's the article. At that point, I was just a user. I was holding my phone, reading this article, and that's when I realized the disconnect. And I knew I wanted to go back out to the Bay Area, but I knew in order to do that, I had to learn how to become technical. And so then I started gaining this dropout mindset, which is what I want to talk to you guys about, because I think everyone should have this mindset, even without actually dropping out of college. Like, this is the time when you want to learn the things that you want to learn. And if you're waiting until, like you saw earlier, so many people raised their hands when I said, who wants to start a company one day? And then I asked who already has or is currently working on a company, and 4 people raised their hand. And so you'll find that you'll graduate, and sure, you want to start that company, but you won't have time to do that. Like, this is the time to do it, because if you're waiting until you have the financial security, it's probably not going to happen, because this is a time when you can try out ideas and constantly pivot to other things and find something that will work instead of constantly begging your parents for money and telling them, no, I promise, it'll work this time. So do it while you have the security of being in college. And oftentimes it seems like there are two separate paths. So you either want to go work for a company or you want to start a company. But there's actually a lot of overlap. If you want to be an attractive hire, start your own company. You will learn far more in the process than trying to work underneath somebody else and learn everything that they're doing. Learn it for yourself, and you'll gain a different mindset that will actually help the company. And so, yeah, always value experience over education. Don't let your education just be here. Do you guys feel like your education is just confined to the classroom, or do you feel like you're learning a lot more outside of class? Anyone, feel free to chime in. Yeah? Like, what do you like learning, or what are you trying to learn outside of class? Mm-hmm. Good. Anybody else? Like, if this is just your education here, it's kind of sad. What about you?
Subject matters enough. I learned a lot
Mm-hmm.
doing Innoblue classes that I don't think I could have taught myself.
Yeah.
So, and it comes because someone can stand there and tell you, in this specific situation, is this really, truly what's correct?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that's something you necessarily teach yourself on something.
Yeah. No, that's good. And oftentimes you'll see people schedule classes just to get an A, but schedule the classes that are interesting, that you'll learn that you can't really get outside of college. So this piece of paper that we all strive for, it doesn't actually protect you. And I'm sure you guys know this. I mean, look at the unemployment rate. How are you going to differentiate yourself from the thousands of other people graduating? Is anyone graduating this semester? Are you guys scared? Do you have jobs lined up? What about you? Yeah. That's okay. You can make it happen. You still have time. What about you?
I'm a mathematics major.
Okay.
I'm in IST, like going through it.
Okay.
I can't even get a job without getting a master's degree in mathematics.
Yeah.
So I already know my future needs, so all I'm going to do is just finish up the semester and see what the current future is like.
Mm-hmm.
That's the best I can really do.
Yeah. Well, good. Anybody else? Well, I'm not saying that school shouldn't be the route that you guys go down. That's awesome, but do make sure that there are things that you're really passionate about outside of the classroom, that you're putting time into as well. And this is what I love. So in Silicon Valley, nobody cares about GPAs or what clubs you were part of. It's really just all about what you can build and what value you will add. And that's nice because whenever we first went out there, and we're meeting all these people from Harvard and Princeton, and then they ask you, oh, where are you from? And especially with the Sandusky scandal going on, you're like, oh, I go to Penn State. But you realize none of that matters. If you can build a product that is the next Facebook, nobody cares where you go to school. So what were you going to say? No, really. So I think that's really the best part about tech. It doesn't matter who you are. It's all in what you can build. And this is funny. It seems very obvious. If you want to work in tech, become technical. But it took me the longest time to realize this. Actually, back when I joined Innoblue at the end of my freshman year, David constantly told me, learn how to code. Code your own website. I was like, no, why would I waste all the time learning how to code if I can just find somebody to code my website? But then, as I went through a few developers and it was never working out, I really realized what he meant. It was about a lot more than learning how to program a website. It was about understanding it. And so whenever I was working with one school, I was the marketing person. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to do marketing really well and learn everything I can about that. But then you soon find out that if you're technical and you're a marketing person, you're a lot more valuable to the team. And with a startup, you have to wear so many different hats that you kind of need to be technical. So if you want to work in tech, become technical. Is there anybody that feels like they're on the cusp of really diving into programming or anything, but they haven't quite done it yet? Yeah? So what do you feel like is preventing you from doing it? Because believe me, I was in the same situation. Like a speaking language? Okay. Oh, well. That's a lot. That's interesting, though. Anybody else? Is there anything, do you guys feel like there's something stopping you from becoming technical? Or more technical than you are at this point? I know for me in particular, I was constantly comparing myself to students that had studied computer science their entire lives and were building websites since the age of 7 and 8, and so I was just like, well, I mean, it's too late now. I can't learn how to program and actually do anything. But then out in the Bay Area, you start meeting CEOs that are teaching themselves how to code. What were you going to say? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. This is where you have to hack yourself. So last spring, whenever I came back to school, I was not technical. I had taken a few programming classes out in the Bay Area, but things didn't start clicking until whenever I came back to school. And so through Innoblue, I said I was going to teach a JavaScript class. And I did not know JavaScript. But I emailed Drew and I told him, hey, I'll teach a JavaScript class on this date. And so that was my pressure to learn how to program because I didn't have a project I was working on and I wasn't yet at the level where I could be working on a project because it was still all so foreign to me. So I said I was going to teach this class and I didn't want it to be completely humiliating. So then I had the pressure of having to learn how to code so that I could teach other people. So yeah, experiment with some things like that. You may find that it works out. So yeah, pick up new skills in whatever you want. So I first started off learning more of like JavaScript, HTML, CSS, but then I gravitated more towards design. And that's what I did a lot last summer, and I love it. And I really don't program too much, but through programming I found design. And so now trying to make that my forte. And there are lots of resources that you can use. Are you guys familiar with these? Yes. Which ones? Just shout out the ones you know or have used. Codecademy. Yeah, Codecademy is awesome. I like Team Treehouse a lot. I like the videos that they have on there. And for me, things made more sense on Team Treehouse than they did Codecademy. Yeah. Yeah, Khan Academy. That's really good too. I haven't used it, but I've heard good things about it. Have people used that? Like, I've never tried using that for learning how to program. But yeah, I mean, whatever you can find to help you, then just go with that. Linda, as a Penn State student, you have access to all of that for free. So another example of taking advantage of things while you are in college. And with Treehouse, you have to pay for it, but they have a student discount that's pretty nice. And Codecademy is free. So how to get started. You don't have to drop out of school in order to learn all about tech. There are a lot of things that you can do right now. So internships, this is the perfect way to test the waters and see what you really like. And through Penn State, you can make so many connections. Just even through LinkedIn, going on LinkedIn, let's say you want to work at Google. So you search people at Google that have graduated from Penn State. And then you can connect with them, and maybe you won't get a lot of conversation out of it, but then let's say you're interviewing with Google, and your recruiter checks your LinkedIn and sees that you have a mutual connection, and it's a colleague of theirs at Google, and then that gives you more credibility. And so really, Penn Staters in particular, they love to help you guys out, so definitely use that. And get feedback whenever you can. So a lot of times with Innoblue, we'll have people that come to us with an idea, but they won't want to share it. And then it makes it really hard to help you because you don't want to share your idea, but you want to get feedback. Because a lot of people like to stay in stealth mode, but abandon stealth mode. Don't do that. It's silly. This is the time. You're in college. You're surrounded by so many people that can give you feedback, and you'll find that once you leave college, this little hub, you'll probably have to pay people to get feedback. Like, it is really hard to get people to sit down and give you some feedback, whereas I feel like at Penn State, people are very willing to do that. Are there any people that do feel like they have an idea that they don't want to share because they feel like someone might steal it? No, that's okay. We hear that all the time. And people say all the time, it really is about the execution, not the idea. And I think by holding on to the idea, you're actually hurting yourself more, because if you're talking to other people about the idea, you might be getting feedback. And that way you're not spending 6 months building something out, revealing it to the public, and finding out that that was kind of close to what they wanted, but you should have changed this and tweaked that. You can find out those things early on so that you don't have to waste as much time building something that nobody will use. So definitely try to get as much feedback as you can. Yeah? Yeah, I don't know. That's a tough one. I just say overall, it hurts you more not to tell your idea. I think there are some instances like, okay, we are college students. We are not your competitors. If a competitor comes to you and they're like, hey, to our office, sign this NDA, that's a little sketchy. I mean, it's your own judgment. Definitely use it there. But as for college students, I don't feel like if I told somebody my idea, they would go home and code it out in a night and then have my idea. So. And why now? Because of everything we've talked about, this is the perfect opportunity for you to do it. And if there is something holding you back, don't let it happen. Just do it now, learn the skills that you want to, and try things out. This is your time for experimentation. And figure out, do I want to work in marketing? Do I want to do design? Do I want to start my own company? What kind of company do I want to start? What are my interests? This is your time to discover all of that. So do it. And like we said earlier, take advantage of the largest alumni association in the country. And I love this. So this is Bill Gates. He said, I failed in some subjects and exam, but my friend passed in all. Now he is an engineer in Microsoft, and I am the owner of Microsoft. And I just think this is awesome. So don't, whether you have success or failure in college, don't let that dictate whatever you do in the future. Really? I don't know. I love it anyway.
For me, I think it's just some bad students trying to show people that Einstein failed them classes, which is absolutely false. He's more like report card and they find it.
I don't know. Maybe it's not true, but I think it speaks to a lot of truth. And now, speaking of Microsoft, all of these companies were started in college. Facebook, Yahoo, Google, Microsoft. So there isn't any reason why you can't be the next. So, your turn. So that is the end, but you guys are more than welcome to ask me questions now, and I'll check and see if you've been tweeting things. Unless somebody else wants to do that. Yeah?